Hi folks, welcome to the Smash Grapes Charcuterie and Wine Tasting Kit. Now, we're not going to tell you which snack goes with which wine. The truth is, the combination of fat and salt will really bring out the flavours in any of the wines. Coming up, you've got our 6 drink-along videos with a little bit more information on the wines in your kit. Enjoy. This is Le Chien Rouge from the Roussillon in France.
Yes, no grape variety to speak of here as we are drinking a field blend, meaning a variety of grapes planted in the field, usually in no order with not much record, harvested all together and made into one wine.
Not what we're used to when we're looking at wines, really. Is this something new?
No, quite the opposite actually. Field blends are a more traditional way of growing and making wine. The idea being that as different grapes do better in different weather conditions, you hedge your bets by having a decent variety growing across the field. That way, whether it's a particularly hot year or a particularly cold year, there'll always be a consistent crop.
Okay, so vineyards or winemakers that specialise in just 1 or 2 grapes, that's actually quite a new thing.
Yes, that's right. Having what we call a single varietal wine is actually fairly modern, something that came in with the rise of the New World wine regions. However, it leaves them open to risk. If you have the perfect temperate climate to grow, say, Merlot, and then one year it's freakishly cold, the Merlot will suffer. You'll either get less wine or it will taste different, which usually leads to price changes. With field blends having different players that do well in different conditions, you're increasing your chances of a win.
Okay, I get all of that. That's all well and good. But how will I know if I like a field blend if I don't know what's in it?
Well, if you look around at what else is growing in this part of France, Carignan is an important grape in the region, as well as unknown native varieties like Calaдаc and Marcelin. So we can make a guess that those will be somewhere in this wine. Think of this wine as a bit of a mutt. It's got grapes that are full of red fruit flavours, some more dark fruits. There are some flowery flavours and also something the French call garrigue. It's the name for all the low-growing bush and shrub life you find clinging to the rocks in hilly areas around the Mediterranean. They all contain wild herbs like oregano, rosemary and lavender. They say you can taste that too in these types of wines.
Okay, so a real mismatch of flavours. What will it go with?
This is a great wine to pick for one of those one-pot wonders where you've thrown in everything, like a stew or a casserole, something with a rich gravy.
Sounds great to me.
Cheers.
This is Centellio Tempranillo Syrah from La Mancha in Spain.
Yes, here we have a blend of Spain's most widely planted red grape, Tempranillo, with a hint of Syrah, a grape most at home up the road in France, as well as in the New World. Tempranillo blends are the staple of what the Spanish like to call, and a style of wine we love, table wines.
Now, I am a big fan of table wines because I think they're the very symbol of what a wine should be. No fuss, no frills, just really tasty, really easy drinking. They don't need to be the centre of attention, more like the accompaniment to whatever you've got going on. A great family meal, a wedding, whatever the occasion is.
That's right, and the Spanish, particularly in La Mancha, are excellent at these types of wine because they have been doing it for so long. Every man and his dog make their own wine in this part of Spain, and they make it for one reason only, quenching thirst. But there is a bit of science behind it. Tempranillo is a high acid grape variety for red. It maintains acidity even when fully ripened in the Spanish sun. Acidity is the mouth-watering, thirst-quenching element of wine. The Syrah adds a little more extra fruitiness, which makes it moorish, and that's exactly what we have here. Thirst-quenching, but moorish wine. You could sink the whole bottle accidentally very easily.
I think the key to a good table red as well is nothing too big and brash. Those big Aussie Shirazes that rip your face off are all very well and good with a bit of steak, but you want something a little more relaxed for your casual drinking.
Absolutely, Tempranillo is a great example of a medium-bodied red grape. That means the alcohol and tannins stay fairly low and the acidity high, making the overall body of the wine about medium, a great all-rounder at the dinner table.
So I'm guessing the food pairing with this is pretty, anything really.
Yeah, I mean, so many things come to mind here. A bit of roast lamb, even some mild curries or casseroles. The Syrah just gives it a peppery spice that you can match with all types of seasoning.
Oof, sounds like a feast. Cheers. This is the Terra Allegre Sangiovese from Puglia in Italy.
Yes, Sangiovese is the grape here, an Italian classic, most famous for being the red grape found in all Chiantis. Chianti is a region, not a grape, and all its red wines are made from Sangiovese. For this Sangiovese, however, we are in a different part of the country, right down south of Italy in the region of Puglia, a Smash Grape's favourite.
Now, I know that Chianti is a DOC region, much like the famous regions of France like Bordeaux and Burgundy, with strict and frankly overcomplicated classification structures. One of the more stuffy Italia regions, shall we say. Whereas Puglia is a bit of a Wild West. How did Sangiovese make its way down there?
To be honest, this is the first I've known of Sangiovese in Puglia. What we know about Puglia is it's very hot and very rugged. For grapes to do well in Puglia, they have to be as hard as nails and have a very tough exterior. In fact, the two reds most famous from the region are Negro Amaro and Primitivo. Primitivo being the Italian and original name for Zinfandel, the big beast of a red wine found in California, which gets made into awful rosé. Both Negro Amaro and Primitivo are massive red wines. The Puglian heat makes them melt into jammy, rich, spicy, velvety delights. A Sangiovese planted in this region is going to be a little bit less of a beast, but still collect some of those jammy flavours.
Ah, jammy. A word we love at the moment when it comes to red wines. So I guess we could think of Sangiovese in Puglia a bit like a Brit abroad, coming down to spend a couple of weeks on the Costa Brava, getting a bit burnt, soaking up some of the culture.
Perhaps the most perfect tasting note I've ever heard. This Sangiovese, unlike the high acid, high tannin wines of Chianti, is intense with hints of jam, velvety sweet tannins, and at 12%, unlike most of the monsters from Puglia, highly, highly drinkable.
And what will this be highly drinkable with?
If you're planning on really taking your time with a classic Italian beef ragu, this is the wine to do it with.
Oof, all over that.
Cheers.
This is Mont Malbec from the Pays d'Oc in France.
That's right, Malbec, the nation's favourite red wine at the moment, and you'd be forgiven for thinking it was out of place anywhere other than Argentina. But France is actually the home of this popular grape variety. It's from Bordeaux originally, blended with Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon and Cabernet Franc to make those famous clarets. It's fallen out of favour in Bordeaux nowadays, but still pops up in the more southern region called Cahors.
Okay, so if I'm a fan of Argentinian Malbec, is Cahors worth looking out for?
Cahors Malbec is actually pretty different. It's not that far from Bordeaux, which is a cooler region than you think for being so south. Thanks to weather brought in from the Atlantic Ocean, this makes the Malbec less fruity and more astringent as it needs the heat to mellow out. For an experience of Malbec you're perhaps more used to, we've picked this wine, grown all the way down right on the border of France and Spain, not far from the Med.
Okay, so it's the heat down in those southern parts of France that create the flavours of Malbec that we love.
That's right, Malbec becomes dark and juicy in the summer sun, but what's most important is the thick skin that it has to protect itself from the heat. Instead of creating bitter tannins, these actually soften in the heat, making Malbec big and powerful, but also super velvety and smooth. That's what makes Malbec so great.
I mean, the Argentinian Malbec often do have a bit of oak in them, right? Sometimes French and American oak, and for really long periods of time, but that's not what we've got here.
No oak on this wine. Argentinian Malbec has developed thicker and thicker skins in South American climate, which means there is a hint of bitterness that can be smoothed out with some oak aging. They're also powerful enough to take on that big vanilla bomb you get from adding American oak. We can think of this French version as a little more subtle, a midweek Malbec that gives you all of the flavour, but you don't need to have it with a 16-ounce T-bone like some of those big RG numbers.
So what am I enjoying this with then?
A great barbecue wine for sure, also goes really well with strong cheeses.
Oof, sold. Cheers. This is for me a Pacheco Monastrell from Jamila in Spain.
Yes, if you're looking for the big guns, Jamila is the place to go in Spain. Their signature grape, Monastrell, aka Mourvedre in France, is like their Australian Shiraz. This wine has power, has guts, and is one of my absolute favourite wines to drink in the world.
Oof, drop in the favourite bomb. No, I know you love a Monastrell, but what is it that makes it a bit different to a big Aussie Shiraz?
So if we were to describe the fruit flavours of big red wines, Shiraz is mostly red fruit. Dark and stewed at times, but still mostly red fruits. Cabernet Sauvignon, another big red wine, is black fruits, blackberry and bramble type things. Monastrell is almost purple in flavour. It's blackcurrant, blueberry, and for me a signature flavour, Parma violets, which is why I guess I think of it as purple. It can be a face ripper just like Aussie Shiraz, but it's a face ripper in a purple velvet suit. I just love it.
Now, this is from another favourite winemaker of ours, Elena Pacheco. She actually prides herself, doesn't she, on creating what she calls elegant tasting wines from this beast of a grape.
That's right. Perhaps unlike the Australians who embrace the beast of Shiraz, Elena and her family use a wealth of experience in grape growing to slow ripen Monastrell, mitigating some of those big bitter tannins and the astringency you get from full-bodied reds. In fact, this wine is so velvety you'd be forgiven for thinking it had time in oak, but there's zero oak here.
Jamila is also the home of my favourite type of festival, where they just play loud music all week and chuck red wine at each other out of plastic bottles, shoot each other with wine-filled water pistols. What is not to love?
Make sure you pack plenty of Daz.
Oh, absolutely. What are we pairing this excellent vino with?
For me, it doesn't need the obvious big whack of protein. A rich paella with fish, chicken and chorizo, loads of spice, or a meaty bit of fish with a rich sauce.
Mint fish? I did not think you would go there.
Cheers.
This is Electric Bee Primitivo from Puglia in Italy.
Yes, Primitivo, the signature grape of this southern Italian region, but perhaps more famously known as Zinfandel. This grape actually started its life in Croatia with a name that I'm not even going to try to pronounce. It very much made its home in Puglia, however the Californians have made it their own under their own name.
Okay, but hang on. When I think of California Zinfandel, I think of that questionably cheap neon pink sweet rosé, more than often consumed out of a box as pre-drinks by students. Surely this is not the same thing.
Well, actually, what we call white Zinfandel is made from the same grape. However, red Zinfandel wines make up some of California's best and most prestigious vino. Very good if you love big jammy reds. We see a little red Zinfandel in the UK, but not a huge amount, and the good ones tend to be expensive, as good American wine does cost a fair bit.
So can we expect the same from this Primitivo?
Absolutely. Puglia is one of Italia's hottest regions. It's desert-like, not dissimilar to California. As a result, those dark fruit flavours become rich and jammy in the sun. Puglia is also a fantastic region for full-bodied Italian reds on a budget. It's a region with some of the fewest DOCs or accredited regions. Winemaking is considered rustic, but don't let that put you off. When would you ever turn down rustic Italian cooking with generations of experience? The same applies for the winemaking.
Okay, I mean, also, half of Italy's olive oil is produced in Puglia, so there's a little fact for you to take home with you.
What would I do without your contribution to these tastings?
Well, you know, look, you're welcome. It's big, it's fruity, it's surprisingly easygoing for this part of the world. Not the beast I was probably expecting, actually.
Yeah, for sure, it's been very carefully managed by the winemaker. Lots of coastline for cooling sea breezes here, stretching out that ripening process to mean that it doesn't reach peak jam before those thick skins and bitter tannins have been well mellowed out.
Okay. I mean, you know, I'm feeling pretty mellow after a few glugs of this. You know, what can I pair that with?
Rich red sauces, and I don't mean Heinz, anything with tons of tomatoes in.
Oh, delightful.
Cheers.
Thanks for watching our drink along videos. We hope you enjoyed the wine. Don't forget to come back and spend your £10 voucher on your favourites.